Hi, this is David Vaughn, the voice of Chris Redfield in Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and you're listening to the Residents of Evil podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Residents of Evil podcast. Today we are joined by a very special guest, actor David Vaughn. David is the voice and performance capture for Chris Redfield in Resident Evil 7. This podcast is part 1 of 2 for our Halloween special. Tomorrow we'll be joined by DC Douglas, the voice of Resident Evil's villain and Chris Redfield's arch enemy, Albert Wesker. So stay tuned for that. David was a great guest and I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. If you do, please don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more upcoming episodes of the ROE podcast. With that being said, let's start the show.
Go ahead and get this going here. I want to say thank you for joining us, and I know it's early on a Saturday and you got work today, but I appreciate you taking the time to come on here with us.
Yeah.
If you'd like to introduce yourself and just kind of let everybody know a little bit of your history.
My name is David Vaughn, and I was born in 1983 to the loving parents. I started in mocap a couple years ago. It kind of fell backwards into it after an audition that I didn't book, and luckily there were a couple flakes the day of, and I got called in to do some background work as a Delta 4 soldier, and that sort of led to a really good relationship with House of Moves, which is the mocap house that did all the capture for the latest Resident Evil. So
Okay.
That relationship, they just started calling me in for, basically every video game that they were shooting there. So it just worked out in my favor.
Yeah, it's nice to be needed.
So did you, did they contact you directly when this part came up, or was it something that had to go through maybe your agent or something first and came back to you?
No, I'm actually hoping my agent doesn't hear this interview because she doesn't know that I booked this role.
She's like, hang on a second, that's why I'm here.
I booked most of my own stuff, and I had reached out for The Devil's Third, which was the first game that I did, and they called me in from my own submission. So after that, Georgia Kano, who was the one that was producing at the time, she would just send me an email and be like, hey, there's this great role. Do you want to come in and read for it? And that's how Biohazard happened was, she just sent me an email and was like, I think this role fits you really well. If you want to read. And so I came in for it and felt really good about my first audition. And they sent me a callback notice that day. And then I met with Navid, who was the American side director, and had my call back, and I felt even better about that. And it was between me and like one other guy, and they told me that going in. They're like, it's between you and one other guy, so there's no pressure,
Okay. So you must be extra good.
Like, thanks. I would rather it be down between me and 20 other guys, because then you don't feel bad if you don't get it.
Right, exactly. Right. It's just kind of like, okay, well, there's a lot of competition. But in this case, it was like, no, it's you and one other person, so you need to be good.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of answers the next question. This came from one of our patrons, one of our major supporters here at Kendall Gun Shop. He was wondering if you would audition for any other roles besides this part.
No, this is the only one. And I actually wanted to audition for several other roles because I prefer playing bad guys.
Oh.
And I prefer playing, more mentally unstable. And I mean, honestly, they're more fun. It's more fun to be bad. It just, let's face it.
Yeah, you get more freedom to do like different things. You get to be like and I've always noticed this too because I've followed a lot of voice actors for years and met a lot of conventions and stuff. And from what we can already tell from before we set up talking and stuff, all of us just shooting the shit and everything. You're a real nice guy. So from what I've seen, it's always like the nice guys that make the best bad guys.
It's a chance to explore the dark side.
We get to get all of that shit that like we hide constantly. We just get to get it out there, and and express all the things that we hold back on a daily basis. But the role of Lucas is the one that I really once we got in the volume and started acting, I was like, oh, I want to be that guy. He gets to be an asshole, and he's very he's insane and psychotic, and the guy playing him, super great actor, and his voice, he had this voice that was like, it was like a high pitched, nasally, just, it's one of those voices that he just sounded like an insane person. I don't know, everything about it. He did a great job bringing the character to life. And
totally. Oh yeah, that was like his role was like very unique, and I'm very interested to see what happens in the later part of Not a Hero DLC when we actually get to discuss more. Because at one point when I was playing 7, it's like, oh, you ran into Jack Baker, you ran into Marguerite and everything. Now we got to go through Lucas's puzzles and everything, and then I'm like, wait a minute, there's no showdown with Lucas. Wait, did I miss something? Yeah. So like it kind of threw me off, and I'm like, oh, okay, they're setting up for something. This is gonna be good. I'll wait because this guy is pretty interesting. I mean, given that his family was kind of crazy too, but his was like a whole different level. His side of horror was like through traps and mechanisms, not being like a mutant and stuff. So it was a nice little change up from what we were dealing with for the first half of the game. Right.
Speaking of the rest of the family, did you work with anybody else? The DLC is separate from the campaign. And by that point, I think when we're doing the DLC, either stuff's going on in the house or it's after the house. But did you have any interaction with the rest of the cast from the main part of the game? Besides Lucas?
Besides the first day that we all sat down and had a read-through, I have not seen anyone else from the cast except Lucas and then other soldiers.
Okay. That's funny, talking about the dark side of good people. It's like Sarah... We've interviewed her and we did her part, talk about her part as Marguerite. She is such a sweetheart, hilarious, funny, amazing woman. But Marguerite is such a contrast to who she is. It's just really, really evil. And she talks about having that deep, dark, part of you that you could just kind of let out in a villain role, where she just had a blast doing it. So,
and she said she channeled her mother. So,
right.
So. This was a fan question from Epsilon Church. He's asking, were you familiar with the Resident Evil franchise at all, or the character of Chris before getting the part? And
so, I've never been a gamer. I've always been terrible at video games, and so I just didn't play them. I was more of a sports guy. My brother is huge into video games, and so this was a big deal for him. But I didn't follow the game franchise. I do, since I'm an actor, mainly I follow films. And so I love the movies, which, that might piss a bunch of people off.
I was like,
hey, that's what we're here for.
Yep.
I'll be honest. I'm more of a movie guy. So that's been my only experience. So I only knew, the Mila Jovovich stuff, and honestly I didn't even watch all the movies, so I never had a reference point for Chris Redfield.
Right.
Interesting.
Which I honestly think that worked to my benefit, because I didn't compare myself constantly to other people's versions.
Okay.
Right.
I didn't compare myself to the film version or to any prior actor who played it on the game, because I may have tried to imitate Kevin, which would then be a detriment to my performance, because I'm constantly thinking about how someone else would do it instead of just trying to honor the character itself. Because I find what happens is you end up with a Val Kilmer Batman, where it's you take an iconic character and you start trying to play it the way someone else has played it, and then you're just terrible.
Right.
And I never want that for any character that I play. So I think it helped not knowing that much about, the previous Chris Redfield. I didn't understand the importance of who I, was portraying until like my third day in the volume. And they were like, do you understand? Like, you know who this character is, right? And I was like, no, I don't. And they're like, oh, well, you're a big deal. And I was like, well, you shouldn't have told me that.
Yeah, no pressure.
Yeah.
Now I have all this pressure, whereas before I was just having fun, And I mean, I didn't really get in my head about it after that, but I don't know. I feel like it's no different than anything that anyone else does in their daily lives. It's just being the best version of yourself for this character.
That's a good way to actually go about it, because from what we've all seen of Resident Evil 7 and the trailer for Not a Hero and stuff, you do the character justice, because this is like, I mean, I've been involved with the game since its inception back in 1996. So seeing the evolution of Chris's character, which I tried to explain to people, which open it up, it's like, look, he's a changing character. So the voices have changed over the years. The look of him has changed over the years. But the one thing that's remained about Chris is that he's dedicated to his job. He's a professional. He's there to save the day type deal.
His moral compass.
Exactly.
What's funny is because there is the Japanese version and the American version, and there's a Japanese director and American director, and then when we're shooting, both in the volume and in the studio, they like the Capcom is there, and they're listening in. Of course, they send the guy to the volume when we're doing the mocap to direct us there, and we kept having to push back because they wanted to they kept being like, no, make him more worried and all this stuff. And Naveed and myself, we would talk, and Naveed would always step in and be like, look, he's not the worried kind of guy. He's a badass. We're not doing worried. He's like, we're kicking down doors and we're busting asses. Like, this is the guy who's saving the day. We're not playing it that way. And so he was really a great advocate for keeping the character sort of true to his history and sure that he was still this badass, save the day, sort of straight and narrow dude who was always doing the right thing for the right reasons, and who wasn't, I don't know, it's like they were trying to make him soft, and he was like, nah, we're not playing that game.
That's not Chris.
Because they were sending me, reference videos, and they would, in the studio, they would play reference voiceover for me to hear these different, mostly in the the emotional things, just the punching rocks and stuff, kicking down doors and whatnot. So they'd be like, play these, and I was thinking there has to be an alternate Chris Redfield for this to have recorded, and there is. So they have the Japanese one, and they have the American one, I guess, the English version.
Yeah. So I guess, like, covering that point, you weren't really scared to take on the role because you didn't know too much about it, and they gave you good direction in the process of who Chris Redfield was. Like, a couple days into it, they told you, I guess, how important he was.
They just kind of let me play, who I wanted and how I wanted to play him, and
kind of get your take on it first, and be like, okay, this is who he is. So
yeah, well, they started out telling me. Well, I mean, I first of all, I just read the script, and I was like, yeah, this guy's a fucking badass.
Yeah.
And so that's how I played it. And then, they never had to redirect me. They were pleased with my performance. And then they were like, so you know who this is, right? Like, yeah. Chris Redfield, right?
He's the guy.
And they're like, yeah, but do you know who he is?
Right. How important he is, this big role.
Yeah. So that's
yeah. So they give you kind of any notes, I guess, before you started or after they finally told you, what Chris Redfield meant to the series. They give you kind of pointers like this is, whether it be through the script or through personal like coaching on the set, directing, be like, hey, this is something he does specifically this is some of his traits.
No, they didn't. And honestly, I don't think I'm not sure that the people on set were that intimately familiar with the character himself.
Interesting.
Because I believe the American director, I don't think that he's directed any of the other episodes. I don't know that he's played the game. I think that he just learned from Capcom when they came in who the character was and how he was supposed to be.
Right.
So I feel we were all, myself and the director were sort of both working from this angle of becoming familiar with the character, and which, I mean, honestly, I'm surprised that he was intuitive enough to be like, to push back against Capcom and be like, we're not going to play this, soft emotional character, because that's not what we see in the script and what, or what we see in this character. And, the writer, we change stuff on set all the time. And I'm like, no, he's like, we're not saying that. Let's say this. And he's like, stop with this. We're not doing these speeches. He's just going to say, shut the fuck up or whatever it was.
Short and sweet.
Yeah. Make it. He's like, this is not a speech giving kind of guy. And I loved his, sort of his intuition. And I think that his experience with, directing video games, because he's directed a lot of video games. And he just had great intuition about the character, and he and I were on the same level. I could just look at him, and immediately he would know that we got to change. We're going to change that.
It's not going to work.
He and I were on the same wavelength, and it made it really easy in the volume. And the voiceover stuff in the studio, that was all. I mean, that's all cake. I love being in the studio, because you have the freedom to
kind of get it out there,
to
express yourself.
Exactly.
Interesting.
What can you tell us about the Not a Hero DLC? Is there anything you can go into specifics about?
Doesn't break your NDA.
That's like the one thing that specifically the NDA covers.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it.
Don't talk about it, but
the lawyers are listening and watching.
The first rule.
If we don't try, they're going to yell at us, so we got to try anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, I don't know a whole lot about it. So, I mean, I've done so many jobs since then, and I'm producing a film, and like there's so many things going on in my head that I'm not sure I would remember a whole lot to tell you.
It's totally
you're good.
So I do not into specifics, but it was supposed to come out in spring, and they said that they weren't happy with the way it was turning out, so they pushed it back, and now it's coming out in December. Did that bring you back? Had you already done all your parts?
And it was awesome. Anytime that they mess up and they want to bring me back, I'm
yes,
more than happy to come work.
Interesting. So they did bring you back, and you guys refilmed or reshot and capped everything. Was it vocals? I mean, was it a whole kind of like redo, or was it?
Went back into the volume and did we redid a couple scenes, and then went back into the studio and did the VO for it.
Okay. Was it major changes or was it small changes?
No, it wasn't anything major.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of. I remember going back in, and I think it was just the ending changed, and I'm not going to tell you what it was before.
Okay. All right. We'll have to find that out when it comes out.
Yeah, we've already waited pretty much a year. I don't think we need spoilers now. We're good.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe after the fact, I don't know if you were like, after it comes out, we can get together, do a short little, hey, what was it supposed to be? If you're allowed to do that. That would be interesting. So.
I will say, though, it's interesting that Capcom is putting so much into a free DLC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely nice of them to put the effort behind something that we don't have to pay for.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was because of the backlash that 7 got and everything, like originally. I mean, like there's a lot of great about the game. There's a lot of things that are a little off, as a lot of people have pointed out. It's still a good game. It's sad that it didn't hit its mark. So I think with the re-release of the gold edition coming out in December, anything, I think that'll help them out a little bit more, generate some more money, and obviously we don't want to see the series end and everything. We want to keep coming back and everything, and we want guys like David to keep coming back too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. You've loved the role so far, and who doesn't like to work and earn a living?
Right.
I mean, even if by some miracle in the next year my career just skyrocketed and my day rate was astronomical, I would still come back just to do mocap. I love doing video games. It's just there's really nothing better than just going and playing in the volume and being these badass characters, and it's so much, like, I can't even tell you how much fun it is.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, like, it's always something I personally myself have wanted to do, because like I've played sports like a lot in my life, and I've also done martial arts since I was like a little kid, and I still do it today. So be able to do that stuff in motion capture, and then see the end footage of you as that character, like that would be like something. I mean, plus, like, again, like you said, like, you're going to play pretty much. You go, you have fun, you get to work with a bunch of people, you get to shoot guns, do sword fights, all that kind of crazy stuff in certain games. So I can understand why you'd want to keep coming back to it. It's just really, it's something that you enjoy and you're good at.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because you'd done work for motion cap before with as the Delta Soldier, and then this, when you came back, this is primarily, you're the focus, you're the main star of this smaller portion of this game, that this whole recording session is going to focus on you. What was that experience like, getting there and just having fun and playing with it?
I mean, it was honestly a lot less action than I was hoping for. I was wanting to play a lot more, but because he's such a badass, it's like he just walks in and kicks ass. He doesn't.
No need for extra.
Like, there's no like fight sequences really with him. It's more of like he just kicks someone ass's sequence. It's he just goes in and throws a heel in their throat, and it's like he doesn't. It's like no one can really fuck with Chris Redfield, and
this is true.
This is true.
Very cathartic about that. Just going in and it's like there's no real struggle. There's one point in the DLC where well, I guess I can't talk about that either.
Damn it.
Anyway, so there's like a cool fight or whatever, but it's nothing like a lot of other games where you have these long extended hand-to-hand combat sequences or anything like that. It's kind of just, I get to go in and kick ass, and then I'll usually walk out on some line like "fuck you," and that's kind of it. And I love
the credits.
When we got in the studio, doing those lines was awesome. It's like, all right, now give me like 3 fuck yous. All right, now go ahead. Now give me a shit. All right, yeah. Now give me like 5 of those. And I'll just get to yell. It's one of those things that as a kid you're told not to do. So when you get to do it, it's a lot of fun.
You mean I get paid to swear? All right. You know what? Oh, I don't think that F-bomb I did was really good. Let me try that another 10 times here.
Right. That's awesome.
Well, there you have it, people. He's still Chris.
Yeah, he's still Chris. How do you feel about being thrust into the RE fandom? It's kind of there are definitely
double-edged sword.
Yeah, there's a lot of divides in the fandom, but it is a big fandom that loves different aspects of each game. And this question came from one of our fans. This is from Nora, and she wants to know, what is it like coming into this world of the Resident Evil?
It's a little intimidating, but it's a huge honor for me because I understand the intensity that a lot of people play with, and how they feel about gaming and how they feel about specific games. So to come into a franchise like Resident Evil that is so well known and so followed,
right?
It's especially to come behind two amazing actors who have already played this character, it's very intimidating. But because I didn't really fully understand it, it didn't affect me until afterwards, which was convenient for me. But at this point, I feel very fortunate and very honored, and I just want to hopefully they continue to bring me back in future games, and I hope that I do a service to the character and that I stay true to the fans, because at the end of the day, that's the only reason you do it. I mean, if there are no fans, then there's no game.
Right. Exactly. And that's good that, like, you know, like, I mean, like, there has been good reception for you voicing Chris. Obviously, people who don't understand have gotten the negative. But the people we've interviewed in the past who've picked up the role for characters that haven't been back in a few years and they're new ones, they were shocked at like the level of love they were getting. And some got hate and everything, but others were getting all this love that they didn't realize how big the fan base was. And DC Douglas was one of them, because he'd been voicing Wesker since, I believe, 2007. And he discovered like a whole new life. He ended up going to like different conventions and everything and meeting fans. And he got like that Wesker erotic fan fiction panel that he has and stuff. And he's found like a whole new love. And that's what I like when actors really realize that the role that helps them and they give back just by going to conventions. I mean, hell, if you got to go to conventions, man, I'd come out and see you.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I would love to go to conventions. I mean, there's nothing. That's why, not why actors act, but that's why I went into performing, is because I love the gratification of connecting with my audience and with the fans and making them happy. Because if you're not making them happy, then you're pissing them off. And who wants to just piss a bunch of people off?
Right.
Especially the Resident Evil fandom. Do not do it. Do not do it.
Especially they're the ones that are buying the game. You kind of want to keep them somewhat happy so they come back and buy more of the games.
Exactly.
All right. So this question comes from another fan called Mr. TD.
Again, what is one of the Mr. TD? I will not say your full name on air.
Yeah, whoever
you know who I'm talking about.
That's right.
What is one of the most important aspects of Redfield you enjoyed the most?
One of the most important aspects that I enjoyed the most.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. I would have to say his badassness. Yeah. Though just the way he handles himself, it's not. I mean, I always like to play characters who are well-rounded emotionally with their emotional life, and he's very sort of one-dimensional. It's like there are these flashes where he cares about someone, but he's sort of he's just a badass, just constantly through and through a badass. Nice. And for me, that was that's something that if you don't stay in that direction, if you don't keep sort of that directive with your action with him, then it's sort of the character falls off. And so for me, that was sort of the most important thing to focus on, was being true to and with everything, his movements, how he speaks, not only to his other his soldiers, but to Lucas and just in general, but just trying to be a badass with every single thing that you do, even when you're in the studio and you're getting you're taking punishment and you're getting injured and all that stuff. You still have to be a badass even when you're getting hurt. So to express pain but in a badass way, it was difficult, but it's important. I think that, and I think that really sort of defines him.
I was thinking of, I feel like he took this big fall, like, oh, that looks like that really hurt. Yeah, but he's such a badass, though. He took it like a badass.
Exactly.
Was there anything you didn't like about the part?
I wish there was more of it, honestly. I wish it was a bigger role in the actual game. When we sat down for the read-through, we were there for like 2 hours, and I had, I think, like 4 lines, and I was like,
hey,
what?
where's my part?
That's why I didn't really understand, the importance of what I was doing, because, I just sort of came in at the end of the script.
Right.
And I was like, all right, so I come in and it, all right, okay, I get like a scene. Cool.
Probably like treating you like
You were the
like
hook.
you're like a special person to be there. Everybody's treating you and respecting you, and like, okay. And you look at their script, you're like, man, do you treat all the extras like this? Is this something small? I mean, I don't know what's going on here. It's a great studio. And then like into the actual, you're part of the DLC. Like, no, you are like the guy.
Yeah.
Like,
So
oh,
when they're like, so do you have like a week available? This is like a year later. They're like, do you have like a week? What week are you? Or like 2 weeks? And I was like, 2 weeks. What? How long does it take to shoot a lines? And I go in and I've got, now I have, 10 or so pages, and I was like, oh, hi, character.
okay.
Well, it is kind of funny when you think about it, because Resident Evil 7, it basically all leads up to just Chris Redfield being revealed. And it's like, oh, hi, he's back in the series.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they told me after the initial shoot days when I came back for the DLC stuff. That's when they sort of told me, the way they said it was, you are the Christ figure of this game. This is like your.
Well, that's not intimidating at all. It's like, okay.
No, okay.
All right.
So
that's good and bad, I guess.
It comes with the Boulder territory.
Yeah, and I want to credit our fan Batman for that one. Batman, thank you, Batman.
We know Batman.
Apparently, he knows us.
Yeah.
But so yeah, actually, speaking of like boulders and stuff, this is like from the next question. This is actually from Jordan Booth, and they ask. Now, you obviously, I think we talked about this earlier. You might not know, so we'll explain it to you. But did you have to uppercut any boulders as part of the auditioning process? This is pretty much like a joke question.
Yeah,
but...
yeah.
I did not actually. Yeah. The audition was me walking about 15 feet to an imaginary soldier who's dying on the ground, and I look down at him and I say, what was the line?
Is it from the DLC or is it from the game?
No, it wasn't from it wasn't either anything. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just walk up and I said, I'm sorry, soldier. And then I shoot him in the head.
Oh, shit.
Oh, shit.
Oh, wow. All right.
That was the first audition.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That might have been something they never included in, or we haven't seen it yet, because we've only seen one trailer for not a hero.
Well, they should include that.
Might have been a third.
I think it was at the end of the game where I come in and there is a soldier who's turning, and I kill him before he turns as well.
Oh, so I think that was in the trailer actually.
That could have been, I don't know, and this could be completely off since this is way back in the auditioning process. That may have been one of the endings that we just never got in the original game, where he walks out and says, "I'm sorry," and shoots Ethan. That would have been awesome. Because none of us were a big fan of Ethan.
this is true, but I think one of the reason why they asked the boulder, and now like you said, you haven't really gotten a lot of experience with the past games because you said you weren't really a gamer. There's this part in Resident Evil 5 because it's about Chris Redfield. It's about him, and he's facing the main bad guy, Wesker. Yeah, and he he goes to this boulder, and it's blocking his way to save his partner in the game. And he's trying to push it, like you would try to push a boulder to get out of the way. And then this over the top, like Hong Kong action thing that like you would only see like in a Jackie Chan movie or something. He starts punching the boulder, like
uppercutting the hell out of this thing.
And it became like one of the most one of the most interesting things of the character. Like people have like drawn fan art of him punching a boulder. He's literally been throwing boulders because in this game too. Because I noticed in the Not a Hero DLC trailer, Chris isn't as jacked as he was. Because in Resident Evil 5, this guy was like Arnold Schwarzenegger size, like when he was younger. So that's where the whole like punching the boulder comes in deal.
Yeah.
I wish I had to punch boulder. now I want to punch a boulder.
Right.
Like if you ever like are like out in nature or you see one, like just like take a selfie or someone take a picture of you like just punching it, and people will like respect the hell out of that, because it like a lot of people are like, oh, that's so over the top. Like, why is Chris doing that? Who cares? It's hilarious. It doesn't make sense.
It's Capcom logic.
Yeah. That's Chris Redfield. That's kind of what he's known for. He's straight and narrow and punching boulders. He don't care.
It's like, well, it's like David said throughout this whole interview. He's a badass, and how much more badass can you be by punching a boulder?
He punched the rock.
That's true.
I'm still going back to the audition. That's freaking badass.
That's pretty epic. So we kind of touched a little bit here and there on this, but this has been a hot topic for the fan base because there's been a lot of people who have voiced Chris, a couple major ones like Roger and Kevin. Ruben Langdon has been the motion capture for Chris for over 20 years. So when we're playing 7 and we get to the end, and this character comes out, and they had teased that we're going to see somebody from the series make a return. And he says, I'm Redfield. Immediately, the fan base blew up saying, that's not Chris Redfield, that's a clone. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's just Hunk saying he's Redfield. But then Capcom comes out later and says, no, this is Chris Redfield. He's going to have his own DLC. It's going to explain his whole part of what he's doing. And it's been mixed on the reception side. So I want to see if maybe you want to talk about that on your end.
Well, I don't know how to sort of appease either side of any argument for changing actors on characters. All I can speak to is it's a job, and actors they move on, and sometimes the character's not done, so you have to recast it.
Right.
And that's just it's a fact of life. And I'm fortunate enough that they cast me, and I understand that a lot of people are not going to like me because I'm not their Chris Redfield.
Right.
And I can appreciate that, and I can understand that. And I love them for being that dedicated to a character, and at the same time I hope that they can grow to accept me as the new Chris Redfield, because there are iconic characters who have been portrayed by multiple actors, and some of those actors were terrible and some of them were great. Your James Bonds and your Batmans. There have been, everyone has their favorite, and hopefully there'll be a group that springs up that I'm their favorite. But the guys who have been Chris Redfield before me, those are big shoes to fill, and I didn't understand how big they were, fortunately, until after I had already done my job. So hopefully I did a service to what they've started. And at the end of the day, people are going to not like me, and some people are going to like me. So I don't know if I answered that question, or if I even can answer that question, but to say that, it is what it is, brother. And I am fortunate to have been cast in this role. And I'm fortunate also that the Chris Redfields before me were so awesome at being Chris Redfield that it held me to a high standard. And I just hope that, I performed on their level, and I hope that the audience feels that way. And, that's really all I can say about it. So.
That's a perfect way to answer, because you're just explaining like it's a job. And as much as you love it and everything, times change, things change. Ruben Langdon had actually talked to us about this as well. When you're dealing, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, the Japanese have all their actors in all the time, which is very true. But the way the Japanese view their actors towards how Americans and how the companies work over here, it's very flip-flop. It's very like night and day. It's very different. Because there's some actors for video games that I followed in Japan that have been doing the role of characters for like 20 years, and Roger Craig Smith, he did Chris for, I believe, about like 8-9 years. So it is hard to see something that you love change, because people don't handle change well. But I think if anybody, like, all the fans that are watching this and everything, I think if you really kind of just put your feelings aside and, much like a reviewer, just go at everything with a fresh look, everything, and just watch David's performance in this. I think you will understand exactly, what you want from the character of Chris Redfield. From what we've seen so far, he's already done the character justice, in my opinion. Yeah. And we've only seen a little bit. So I think if you really just understand what David just told us about, it's a job, it's an ever-changing business, you'll see that he went in this and he had fun doing it. He wants to come back and do it. That's something to take into account with his performance, because some people just go in, they read the lines, that's it. There's not much direction and everything like that. David seems to have really outdone himself with what we've seen so far. So I think if you really just sit down and look at it like that, you can, stop hating for like 5 seconds and really enjoy a guy who enjoys his work and already enjoys the character itself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just give it a chance. Like, even when I got it spoiled for me that Chris came back, so it wasn't, too shocking. But when you're playing the game and you get to the end, it's just like, damn, that's my childhood coming back right there. Like, he literally hit the original remake Chris to me. Yeah. It was like seeing the original come back after almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So just give it a chance. Every fan base does the same thing with Tomb Raider. So many games that have been going on for so long. Give it a chance.
Understand that it's a business. Business things change. Actors move on. Actors are unavailable. And new actors get the opportunity to take on such great roles. And, I mean, this, like I said, this is not the first Chris we've seen. This is, hopefully, I don't know if Chris is going to go anywhere in the future, but won't be the last time we see him in a game. And I don't think this is going to be the last time we're going to see David. So accept it and appreciate the fact that at least we still have these characters in our games.
Speaking of which, David, they do animated CGI films for Resident Evil on the side. If they were to ask you to come back and play Chris, would you, bring back the role?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do they do mocap for them too, Tone?
Yeah, they do. Because Kevin has done mocap for Leon in Damnation, and then of course Ruben was Chris for so long, so he always ended up as Chris. So they do have mocap. We talked to Aaron and I talked to Jason Font. They do mocap the movie first, and they go back and animate it over the top.
Oh, okay. So. Do we know who played Chris in that one?
Ruben.
Oh, that was Ruben?
Yeah, that was the last time Ruben stepped into Chris's shoes before they went into Resident Evil 7. So that is another thing too. You got to look at during this time period. Ruben was fulfilling the role for Chris in Vendetta, and why they were making 7. So
yeah,
So we got David. David's taking over the role. He's taking on the mantle.
You got this, David.
Yes.
I have confidence in myself.
Yes. I like it, and I'm excited to play it when it comes out in December. Do you have any social media plugs you'd like to throw out there where fans can follow you and keep up to date?
I do have social media, but it's more for my photography. So,
you're a photographer too?
Yeah, I'm a photographer. My father was a photographer, and I was just raised behind a camera. So, I do photography, and I try to do more conceptual, high art stuff. And I have a lot of projects that I'm working on. And, I love doing nature photography, and just it's one thing.
That's interesting because, for me, that's what I do for a living. I'm a photographer out in Boston.
Oh, nice.
And I do cosplay. I do modeling. I do headshots for people, like parties, anything that comes my way, I do it. Okay. And the other thing that this is actually something that you and the previous voice actor of Chris Redfield, Roger Craig Smith, do. He's big into doing photography himself, but he seems to do it like at night where he captures the stars and the moons, and he's really good at it. So if you've got Twitter and everything like that, follow him on there and everything, because his stuff is really cool. He's a good guy from what I've been told by people who've met him. He's a fun-loving guy.
So what, Twitter, Instagram, is there a specific platform where people can look for you?
My Instagram is at David Vaughn Photography.
Okay.
And also at Vaughn Dav. That's my personal one.
Vaughn Dav, okay. Is that where, if you post any, as far as like upcoming projects and stuff, would you post them on there as well, or is it just strictly photography?
Yeah, it's basically anything going on in my life will get posted on Facebook. Again, on Facebook, it would be Facebook.com/VaughnDav.
Okay.
And my Twitter is VaughnDav. Everything is VaughnDav.
Okay. Speaking of projects, do you have any projects coming up that you want us to be looking for?
I do. We are wrapping up on a feature film. It's a sci-fi fantasy drama that is called 2050, and we're actually, excuse me, we're taking it to the market at AFM next month, and we'll be wrapping up. We have one shoot day left out here in LA, but it was all shot in New York, and we'll be hopefully releasing that next year, early next year. Editing has already begun, so yeah, that's exciting. I'm the lead actor in that as well as a producer, and that was a lot of work, and it was many years in the making. So we're glad that it's finally done. But I think we'll satisfy both the sci-fi fan base and some people out there with drama. Sorry, my roommate's making smoothies right now.
That's right. That's right. Actually, I don't even hear it, so that's good.
Neither do I.
Good.
I hope they're good smoothies. But yeah, definitely. Sure. We'll keep an eye out for that. And again, follow all David on his social media so you guys can see when it's coming out officially. It seems interesting from what I saw here. It's talking about the future, and here's the summary off of IMDb. A discontent married father of two is introduced to a warehouse of androids for human companionship. Very interesting.
Yeah, about sums it up.
Yeah, that's about right. So, you have any parting words for the fans?
I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for just having passion and love for this game and for this character specifically. And thank you for giving a shit. And I hope that you continue to give a shit.
Right.
And, and love me or hate me, I'm here. So I want you to love me, and I'll do my best to honor the character, and I want to say thank you for being fans.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate everything that you've done for the series and what you're going to do in the future, and thank you for coming on the show and talking with us here. I think it's a good opportunity for our fans to get a chance to know you as a person and as the actor that's taking on this role. So,
well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
David, that would have been the perfect spot to say, "Love me or hate me, I'm still Redfield."
It crossed my mind, but I didn't.
That will conclude our show for today. I want to give a huge shout out to David for coming on. He really was a great guest, and I'm sure he'll do a great job as Chris Redfield. You can follow David on social media. I'll leave the links down below. What do you guys think about what David had to say? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a like and make sure to subscribe for more great episodes of the ROE Podcast. The Residents of Evil is a Patreon-supported channel. If you would like to get a shout out and unlock some other really cool perks, head over to patreon.com/ROE Network. Link will be down in the description. I do want to give a huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters for the month of October, starting with our sword key holders: Amy Adams, Kuhn Cannon, Vilk Kiss, and Corey Marcoulier. Moving on to our armor key holders: Lerwin, Bryce Ray Parker, Tyler Seth Parsley, and Nathaniel Goldring. Next up is our shield key holders: Nick Taylor, Thomas Clifton, aka Cliff Jumper 3, and RJ Mitchell. Now over to our helmet key holders, or our key collectors. We have Umbrella Corporation, Kendo Gunshop, Alexander Young, Thomas Owen, and Steve Jacobson. This podcast was brought to you by our Master of Unlocking members. This is our highest tier level. These members include Chris Lampert and Doomslayer. Thank you all so much. Your contributions and support help the channel greatly. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope to see you back at the Residents of Evil.